Okay, welcome ladies and gentlemen. This is the final of the junior debating competition between Great House and Lakes. Great House are proposing the motion that this house believes we learn more outside the classroom than within it. I'd like to introduce Cameron, Harry and Max from Great House and Tash, Emily and Izzy from Lakes. I will now call on the first speaker from Great House, Cameron Backstrand.
Mr. Chairman, honourable speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I will be speaking about what we learn in the classroom, and my friend Harry will be expanding on the problems with the classroom environment. Well, we all agree of education, and it is hugely important, and its aim should be there to prepare us for the dismal challenges of adult life, as well as grow our quest for knowledge and discover the unknown. From this perspective, however, it is clear that school fails all but a small proportion of us due to a collective of factors that restrict us, such as an outdated curriculum, and also, just as importantly, the environment in which we learn at school, the classroom. There are two principal skills that we should be learning: work and relationships. Now, you all may be questioning why relationships, but it is actually, again, like I said earlier about education, it should be preparing us for adult life. And adult life is a big part of relationships. Now, what I mean by relationships is that it's a connection we have between each other, and also a relationship that we have with ourselves, and the connections that we make with ourselves and the emotional burden it has. For instance, how do we deal with anxiety? How do I become a more compassionate person? How do I sustain a healthy relationship? These are not focused on the classroom today, which I think is a problem, and my friend Harry will be expanding. Even with an ideal classroom, however, relationships can never be taught as well as the outside, as they are uninspirational and discouraged as a form of space. To reflect on ourselves and on others, it is hard. And I have a personal experience of learning outside the classroom and understanding myself better. And this is in the Year 9 camp. I learned more about myself in that 1 week than I did ever in school. And I mean this, I actually mean this. This is not something that I just brought up for the debate. It really was something I understood myself better. There I learned how to develop better friendships. I learned how to be a better person. And I actually have some of the friends today that are still with me. And I'm grateful for it. This is because the outside has an unpressurized and non-judging environment. You may be patient rather than the pressurized environment that is in the classroom. Now, I'd like to digress to the second skill that we learn in school: work. What I'd like to argue is experience causes us to learn more than studying. A good example of this is travelling to a foreign country, a foreign country that we don't speak. Here, when we speak our language, it's clearly that this experience allows us to learn language faster than in a classroom. The classroom is not just, the classroom at the end of the day, it's just because it's a projection of what the real world is, and often shows a distorted view of this, and that is why we learn better outside the classroom. I would like to conclude, can I just finish this? I'd like to conclude furthermore by the allegorical story of Plato in Plato's cave. I may accept it.
40% of the British population have a degree in qualifications, and this would not be possible without the professional environment that a classroom provides.
Okay. That may be true, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is learning outside the classroom. What I'm talking about is learning work outside the classroom, which is more effective. We never tried to learn outside the classroom. That's why we have no information on it. That's why we have no data. I'd like to digress to talk about the allegorical story and conclude with the allegorical story of Plato's cave. If you're not familiar with Plato's cave, it is where several prisoners are captive in a cave and are chained to the wall, only able to see from a dim light behind them of a dim light from a cave light. The only knowledge they have is by shadows on the wall, and that is all their understanding. Eventually, one prisoner escapes the cave and he crawls out into the world beyond him. His eyes are the lights are so bright in the world, his eyes have to adjust, and it takes months for him to understand. Eventually he does understand, and he becomes used to the world. He understands what the world is about. Eventually the man goes back down to the cave and tries to convince his captive of all the information he's received. He is dismissed, and he is, as the information is unbelievable for them, and it's too overwhelming for the captives, and they plot to kill him. What the story is illustrating is that we are the prisoners in the cave. And in parts of life we are we are the captives in the cave. And in a modern context, the classroom is the cave. We need to crawl out of the cave, and we need to leave the classroom and venture daringly into the unknown, i.e. the world. Thank you very much.
Please may we have Lake's first speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, honourable chair and esteemed judges, today I will be opposing the motion that this House believes that you learn more outside of the classroom than within it. Today I will be discussing the social implications and future benefits of classroom learning, whilst Tash will be explaining the importance of interacting in an educational environment and the necessities of learning fundamental concepts before we could even consider taking the learning outside of the classroom. But first, I would like to rebut some of what the opposition has said. You say that school is about work and relationships, but these relationships that we make form within the classroom. We meet the people that we develop our relationships within school. As we grow through our school careers, we progress along with these people. You say we haven't tried learning outside, but surely this is for a reason. Although we do believe that every method of learning has its own merits, and used for the correct thing with the appropriate people at the right time, any type of learning intervention is likely to produce results. Despite this, in our always increasing virtual world, there is definite need for real interaction. Classroom sessions provide this. They do it in the form of a real person who can deliver information in an interesting way, engaging pupils.
Point of information.
The first one. Yeah. I accept.
Yes, she's
Yeah.
fine.
Accept.
Can you not view life around us as that educational environment in which we interact with people? Why is the classroom different to that?
I completely recognise your point. You do interact with people outside of the classroom, but surely this is leisure time. Bringing me on to my first point. If we had no classroom learning, it would be a catastrophe. A need for actual human interaction is only going to increase as more people spend longer periods of time isolated by working through computers, with virtually no human contact. Although people argue that using technology as a substitute to classroom learning will be cheaper for people who cannot afford education, such as university, at best, it only amplifies the pedagogical capacity for educational systems. It may make good schools better, but it makes bad schools worse. Although computers appear to engage students, the encouragement swings between uselessly fleeting at best and addictively distracted at worst. Teenagers spend at least 3 hours a day online, and 58% of online users say that they cannot go for more than a few hours a day without checking their online updates. Having this constant availability to go on social media whilst learning on a computer would become immensely destructive towards students' learning. Secondly, and this is applying towards the teachers in the room, please raise your hand if you relied on exam results to achieve a place at university. And keep your hands raised if your degree helped you get the job that you have today. Learning in the classroom is fundamental to understand the requirements set by exam boards. Having studied a variety of subjects, future employees and university admissions will have shown your capabilities of performing not only a specialist subject, but a vast amount. Having the opportunity to be taught by knowledgeable teachers, students become inspired and are given the incentive into what future paths they may take. Learning outside the classroom certainly has its benefits at times, but overall does not provide the stability for a proper education for students. If many chose to take apprenticeships at young ages, how many would actually choose roles that our society depends upon? University is vital in developing the skills for working population that we rely on. Lastly, developing this point, imagine a society without doctors, lawyers, teachers, social workers. How would we cope without these vital roles? Each played crucial roles every day, but without taking exams and studying for long periods of time to develop the specialist skills that they rely on, we would not have them available. What do we immediately do if, say, we got severely injured in a match? Would you just bear the pain? No. You would call an ambulance immediately, and the unlucky player would be treated to by a doctor. However, if inside learning hadn't occurred, then this doctor wouldn't have been on hand. This is just one example of what would occur. Saying our society would be negatively affected is an understatement. So, in conclusion, we believe that although outside learning has its positives, yes, it provides a context to accumulate integrated and subject-based knowledge, and for developing skills. But where are these skills being taken? Back into the classroom. Because that's where it really counts. You see students engage better outside. They have freedom. This is called leisure time. Outside learning would be nothing without inside classroom learning, which provides the base to all careers and is clearly far more important than outside learning. Thank you.
Second speaker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, honourable speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to touch on what Emily had said, that outside the classroom is just leisure time. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but many students do other educational activities outside the classroom, no? Such as part-time work and apprenticeships. Also, you said without the classroom we wouldn't have doctors and lawyers. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for people to work next to a doctor and learn things firsthand? It would be easier for people to be in the hospital next to the doctor and watching them do the operation than sat in a classroom just learning about it on a board. Following on from Cameron, I'd like to start with my own experiences and perhaps ones that you've had yourself. Now, just quickly, how many of you in here today have heard your teacher say something like, "You don't need to know this for your exam," or "Just put this in your exam"? How much of the teaching today do you feel is based around just passing your exam? From my experience in the classroom, I find myself forever wondering why our classrooms and the way in which we are taught are such a distorted view of what the real world will throw at us. The whole concept and reason for school is to prepare our future population for latter life. However, I feel as if it actually inhibits us from getting out there and making our own memories, learning firsthand for ourselves. For example, and be honest with me, how many of lessons a day do you come out of thinking, "Wow, I've learned a lot today's lesson"? Would it not be so much more useful to learn practically? Instead of studying Spanish for hours in a restricted classroom like Cam said, why not go to Spain? You could learn more about the culture and language in 1 week in Spain than in a year of learning in a classroom. I did that myself with Millfield. How many people here can ride a bicycle? Almost everyone, right? And I would wager that not one of you learnt to ride a bicycle in a classroom or just sat down studying about it in a book. You went out there and you tried it and you experienced it, and that is how you learn. I would argue this can be applied to learning throughout life. You learn more about anything by trying it in the outside world than being taught about it in a classroom. Look at Millfield School.
Point of information.
Point of information accepted.
People who are less fortunate and cannot afford such trips as these, so how does this apply to everyone?
Well, there are people in this country, such as my mother knows Spanish. She could teach me every day by speaking to me about it. I don't have to be in a classroom to be able to speak Spanish. Look at Millfield School, somewhere where pupils were given choice over what they learnt and how they learnt it. They rarely used classroom techniques, and instead of learning, they did it by trying things out, experimenting with life. And you know what? They learnt more to help with life and more that they found interesting than they had ever learnt in other schools. And if you find something interesting, you'll take more out of it than if you just sat in a classroom and not enjoying yourself. What does this tell us? Well, perhaps it tells us that learning should be about choice and about enjoyment, over learning with a sole purpose of exams and no thought to future life. I strongly believe that classrooms are unbefitting of the way we as humans learn. Join me and learn about the world through experiencing the world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, honourable chair and esteemed judges, thank you to the points raised by our first speaker. Now I'm going to elaborate on our argument opposing the motion that classroom learning outside is better than within. Firstly, I'd like to take a few moments to argue against what the opposition have said. You claim that school is outdated and so is the curriculum, and learning in a classroom does not allow people to interact and forge relationships with each other. When in reality, learning in a classroom enables students to develop fundamental learning concepts without error or misinterpretation. You can't hope to follow any career path if you haven't been taught the basics properly in a structured and controlled manner. A classroom environment provides this. It ensures students focus their energy and attention purely on the subject at hand and do not focus on distractions from the outside world.
Point of information.
Accepted.
What you're talking about in adult life is simply about career and it's nothing about relationships. When in reality, adult life is very, very much towards relationships and ourselves, but is not taught in schools.
Schools provide discussion, debate amongst each other in the classrooms. You're always entitled to expressing your own opinion throughout your written work and throughout class discussions, which teachers usually do provide. We clearly take our education for granted. Children in LEDCs treasure access to such an education, and we are simply throwing this gift away. Secondly, classroom learning improves confidence while nurturing social skills and teamwork. School provides access to classes, classrooms, teachers, and administrations. A school environment offers students the opportunity to learn with others, which is actually a crucial life skill. Through practical learning activities such as projects, class discussion, children can learn the importance of forging relationships with each other.
Point of information.
Declined. These activities can help us manage difficult personalities and find our way as leaders and better understand ourselves as individuals. These lessons provide us with valuable experiences which help us to progress to adulthood each and every day. Working with others is all about managing different personalities, and learning in the classroom promotes interaction and tolerance for your peers and teachers while learning basic respect for those superior to you. Finally, a class environment enriches discussion and leaves questions for people and allows people to become accustomed to different people's points of view and arguments. If you go straight into a workplace, you will become easily accustomed to biased opinions, prejudiced views, and easily influenced by whatever other people think around you. School teachers you to take, I think it's protected time.
It's just before protected.
Okay, accepted.
You were talking about biased and prejudiced views in the workplace, but isn't the curriculum we have now is very prejudiced and biased towards the government and what the government wants to teach you?
I don't see how that applies to things like science, which is purely knowledge-based and is not opinion. But the whole point of learning a subject for, like history, for example, you take both sides of the argument and you can come to a balanced conclusion where you have to take into account both people's points of view. That is what we're educated to do. To conclude, school teaches us essential life skills that we can learn and develop through interaction, discussion. And learning in a classroom helps us to boost our confidence and work together to establish maintaining friendships. Education breeds education, and tolerance promotes tolerance. We cannot hope to progress as a generation if we do not develop the basic skills to begin with. It is ignorant to believe that we can do so without this. Thank you.
May we have Lake's final speaker?
Firstly, I would like to say thank you to my former speakers who have managed to get our points across. I am now going to conclude the main thrust of our argument and prove why the proposition are wrong when they claim that they learn more outside the classroom than within. Even though I'm ill today, I'm here and I did not skip school for the sake of my GCSEs. Learning is what makes us ourselves, and from a young age, learning has taught us how to be confident, compelling, and cooperative. It has also shown us what path to go down in life because it distinguishes the weaknesses and the strengths. Personally, without classroom learning, I don't know the person that I would be, who would want to become. And I don't think you would too. Harry, you say that we learn more by getting out there, but now with the increasing environment of virtual worlds that are taking over our lives, and as Emily has pointed out, without any human interaction, we would not be learning the vital life qualities a person needs to obtain to succeed in life. And who would be responsible for securing jobs needed in our everyday lives, such as lawyers, doctors, or teachers? Not me, nor you, because we will not have the prerequisite learning to get the qualification that is needed. Also, Cam, you say there is an outdated curriculum. But how are students meant to achieve the same standard of learning without any given information and by teaching themselves? Learning is a gift that a lot of young people in LEDCs dream about, and going to school will be one of their many aspirations in life. So why throw this opportunity away when there are so many begging for it? We are given the chance as young people to develop our life skills, develop our knowledge, develop our understanding, and most importantly, develop on ourselves as a person. And within a classroom, a teacher can instill that on us. Society now craves a person rich with interesting and unique mannerisms. So why would we be interested in trying to change what a teacher is inculcating on us? I certainly wouldn't. Would you? You were trying to state that you are learning more by going on a camp and by crawling out of a cave. But this does not get the necessary qualifications to achieve the high standards that universities are now asking for. Universities are becoming more and more competitive, and without the necessary requirements, you will not get in, leaving you without any qualifications, little prospect of a job, and leaving you pitiful and penniless. Thus concluding my point, I do not see a single reason as to why you feel the need to try and change anything, because we learn so many fundamental skills that is needed for a healthy and fulfilled life. I don't think that you can teach this yourself, and I don't think without a teacher you can be as efficient as you may think. I would like to leave you on a quote that summarises what the opposition and I are trying to say. We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. We learn character through the classroom, and without it in our life we would have no direction, leading us down the path of the unknown. From the ages of 2 to 20, we are still young people who need to develop, and no matter how much money is in our pockets, it does not pay for the character and etiquette that a classroom teaches us. Thank you.
May we now have Max French, Great House's final speaker.
Mr. Chairman, honourable speakers, ladies and gentlemen. The opposition tonight have assumed something. They've assumed that we want to abolish the classroom, we want to abolish schools. Not once have we said this. So many of their arguments have been based on the fact that classrooms are completely inappropriate. I believe all three of us believe, that classrooms are necessary in some aspects of life, but not completely. We do not need to rely entirely on classrooms. And you also claim that distractions in the world around us whenever we're trying to learn, but are there not distractions in classrooms too? I guess everybody here at some point has been distracted by a friend while trying to learn. And then you also said that you only made friends in school, in the classroom. So did not one of you have a friend before you came to school? And I understand that 40% of adults have degrees, but does this not show that we focus too much on exams, not on personality or character, as you mentioned at the end of your summary speech? Exams are one thing, but the outside world is the real test. And you claim that the classroom is a context for the outside world, but I just believe this is wrong. The classroom is not. The outside world is a context for what we learn inside the classroom. The inside the classroom is reliant on the outside world to function. And you said that we discussed things in the classroom. But as far as I'm aware, this debate isn't in a classroom, and I'm sure there's lots of other discussions at school which are not in a classroom. And you also said that science is knowledge, and not opinion. So is the Big Bang fact now. So the classroom is confining. It's not a befitting place to educate people. It functions, but not as well as the outside world. Look at the case studies. Look at Millfield School. Look at Plato's Cave. They all show one thing, that the classroom is not the best way to learn. I do not believe anybody here could claim that they learn more in the classroom than the outside world. Classrooms are not the way forward. Thanks.
Okay, so whilst the judges discuss, we might as well have a quick vote. So, voting for Great House and vote for Lakes.
The winner today, by a very small margin, are the boys.